Senator Durbin.
I didn't want to miss this hearing because it's rare that one of my Republican friends wants to expand opportunities to go to the courthouse and file a civil action. I wanted to be here. It's an historic moment. Mr. Robbins, I have no question that there are men and women working for ICE who are conscientious, professional law enforcement people. The policies that they're asked to enforce, though, have created a feeling of mistrust across this nation, and that's why we're here today. What I just heard from Mr. Murray, and I've heard from you as well, is we ought to be cooperating, and we should. Well, why aren't we cooperating? Well, it has to do with some basics. Words. Words count, and presidential words count for even more. Ask the Kurds. In this situation, we have a president who said we're out to arrest and deport millions of people who were here undocumented. Millions. President's words. Do you know what that did in the city of Chicago among the Hispanic population? Kids needed counseling at school because of their fear that they or some member of their family was going to be deported. Some of them have been here for years, and now they're facing that reality, that kind of fear. We also have a situation where we have law enforcement people that I respect, Superintendent Eddie Johnson, head of the Chicago Police Department in Chicago. Here's what he says about this issue. Undocumented immigrants are not driving violence in Chicago, and that's why I want our officers focused on community policing and not trying to be the immigration police. I listened as Senator Blackburn talked about the drug situation. I would just have to tell you, we are facing a national drug epidemic. There is no state so red that it shouldn't worry about it. There's no suburb too wealthy to be exempt from it, and no town too small. Red, blue, every color in between, we are facing a national drug epidemic. And to blame immigrants on that enrages me. It is a kind of fear and hate language which I think is inconsistent with reality and with the evidence before us. But it is you become part of this whole national conversation. And let me tell you, the example I want to give, Mazie Hirono raised this issue earlier. Here was a situation in Chicago. A young woman who was protected by DACA was driving her car with her 5-year-old daughter. They pulled her over, and even though she said, I'm covered by DACA, they said, we want to take you to your home. They took her to her home, your ICE agents did, and then pulled their guns and arrested her mother, the grandmother of the little baby, because she had literally been in the United States for 20 years undocumented. She had never committed a crime. She was in training to be a Lutheran minister, a grandmother, and she was deported. Now, if you want to make America safer, do you believe that grandmothers who are here undocumented is where ICE should start?
So when it comes to, we have very limited resources.
Right.
We're going to focus that on supporting our partners on the border, CBP, to make sure that we have border security.
Right.
And when it comes to community safety. And
community safety, like grandmothers.
But the third piece of it is we have to have some integrity in the immigration process.
And what does that mean?
So in other words, if we place somebody in immigration proceedings, if we place them in front of an immigration judge and they're ultimately ordered removed, it is our obligation to remove this from the country. Otherwise, why have immigration court or why have immigration proceedings? This is
where it breaks down, sir. This is where it totally breaks down. I happen to have supported the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Bill, which the chairman of this committee voted for, and a number of members did, to try to fix this messed up, broken, awful system we have. It was not considered by the Republican leadership in the House. And because we are stuck with this system with almost 11 million people undocumented here, your integrity issue, number 3 on your list, is what is killing your credibility. You're not going after dangerous people. You're going after people who are here undocumented.
70% of our resources are currently spent in the jails.
And I can tell you the statistics in Illinois, when it turns out that fewer than 20% of those actually deported have been charged with any serious crime.
Senator, I agree with you that it's time for immigration reform, and I think we can all agree for that.
And this patchwork approach that we're now talking about, let's sue one person, let's sue another person, is not going to solve the problem.
Correct, but here today, when it comes to sanctuary cities allowing us to get in the jails to actually arrest those that have committed crimes in our neighborhoods, that should be our top priority.
It really should be. And the reason it's not is because of what Superintendent Johnson said, and the president of the large cities, 69 of them, have come out against your proposal that you just stated. And the reason is they've got to live in these communities. When the president scares the hell out of these people who are undocumented and all of their families, they've still got to police these communities.
I understand, and we have to live in the communities too. And I'm telling you, I do not want one more sex offender released into our communities to prey on our children.
I certainly don't either, but that grandmother was not a sex offender.
I can't speak to that particular case,
well,
but I understand your point.
It was well publicized, and that's the point. You want to go after drug dealers, serious criminals, and sex offenders, count me in. But going after that grandmother and more like her to prove your point about how tough we are, come on.
I don't think that was a point about how tough we are. I think our officers have an obligation that when someone is, and I can't speak to this particular case, but when they come across somebody that's in violation of law.
Which means they came across the border illegally, right?
Correct, but there's discretion throughout the process, whether it's place someone in proceedings, whether they're placed in a non-detained setting, whether they're detained, and ultimately whether they're removed. There are avenues of relief throughout the process.
When we get back to a credible exchange for the safety of the United States, count me in. At this point, this president's declared war on immigrants, and the fear in the community that I represent is the reason we're sitting here today.